Okay, we continue with the story of Pilegesh Begiva. We're on Perek Yud Tes. We just began yesterday, Pasuk Aleph. We'll start it again from Pasuk Aleph and really get into the story today. It was in those days, Umelech ein b'Yisrael, and there was no king amongst the Jewish people. Vayhi ish Levi, there was a Levite man, Gor b'Yarkesei Har Ephraim, who lived in the furthest extremities of Har Ephraim. Vayikach lo isha Pilegesh, he took for himself a wife who was a Pilegesh, mi Beis Lechem Yehuda, from the area of Beis Lechem Yehuda. Beis. Vatizne Olov. What's Vatizne? Now the root is from Zana, which in the simple meaning means to move away, to depart from the straight and narrow, which is obviously, that root word is open to multiple interpretations. And there are two basic interpretations. They don't have to be exclusive of each other, but they certainly can fit with each other. But let's just read a little bit further and see what I mean. Vatelech me'ito el beis avia, and she left him and went to her father's house. El beis lechem Yehuda. She went back to Beis Lechem Yehuda. Vatehi sham yomim arbo chadoshim. She was there a number of days that equaled 4 months. So what does vatizna olav? So the Mitzvah says again, she just turned away from him and went to her father's house. Now, some of the Forshim say that tizna comes from the word znus, which means to be immoral. So one interpretation is the Pilegesh was immoral. All right, she wasn't faithful to him. Now, and according to that interpretation, we're going to have to explain why. We'll see shortly. He's going to go after her and want to bring her back. So if she is an Eishes Ish, if she is a married woman, we know that when a woman acts immorally, then she's forbidden to her husband. So why would he go back for her? So again, that depends on what opinion you have as the status of a Pilegesh. If a Pilegesh does not, according to the poskim that say a Pilegesh does not have the status of a married woman, then she's not prohibited to him afterwards. So that's one way of looking at it. The Radak learns that, based on the Targum, that it says that she embarrassed him. And then she left his house and went to the house of her fathers. And then Radak says it could also be she acted immorally. That could be a simple meaning, but again he explains that she didn't have a ksuva, so it was not a kiddushin, etc., etc., and therefore it says vatizna olav, she acted immorally olav, like mamish performed. She wasn't even so concerned. She even hide her ways, or she was acted snus while he was around, almost with his. As if it was with him, whatever. Like it wasn't a shameful type of experience. But anyway, the husband got upset with her, and then she went and left. Either way, there was some problems with shalom bayis over here. Obviously, there were shalom bayis problems, and she left because of those shalom bayis problems. Malbim says, yeah, he concurs with the idea of znus. That didn't have znus, but she did something he didn't like. Because again, he, like the Radak says, if she really acted immorally, it wouldn't say olav. She was mezana olav upon him. You should say behind his back, or things like that. So before him, she did something right in front of his face, as it were, that he didn't like. And a husband expects the wife to be on the straight and narrow in whatever areas they want, and she wasn't. And she didn't go to a place of snus, but she went to her father's house. She really was a zona. Maybe she wouldn't go to her father's house either. But So that's how the Malbim learns as well. The same as the Radak's first pshat, that wasn't exactly, didn't do something that she wanted. So let's fill in the gaps. So if there were some Shalom Bayis problems, what were the Shalom Bayis problems about? So this is elaborated on in the Gemara in Gittin, on Davav Amid Beis, on the words Vatizna Alav Pilak Sho. It's Machlokes. One rabbi, Rabbi Yossi, says that the guy found a fly in his soup. He was not happy with the way she was preparing the food. He got angry at her. We'll see. Rabbi Yonasan Amar Nima Matzalo. He found a hair of his wife that was from her private parts, and he found that. And that's, I guess, in those days, the custom was that women would shave their private parts, and that's the way they did things in those days. And she didn't do that, and that's was hurtful for him in terms of their intimacy. There could be some even physical dangers involved. So, in other words, she didn't really care about their intimate relationship so much. One was she didn't care so much about his food, and one she didn't care so much to be the way she should be during their intimacy. Those are the two pshatim. So, the interesting Gemara goes on. So, Rabbi Yossi, who was the first opinion, he chanced upon Eliyahu Hanavi, and he asked Eliyahu Hanavi, so what's Hashem doing right now in the world? So Eliyahu Hanavi says Hashem is involved in learning about the story of Pilegesh Begiva. And what is Hashem talking about? Hashem is saying, if Yosser, my son, says this opinion, and Yonasan, my son, says this opinion, and that's what was going on over there. So Hashem is, in other words, parenthetically, we learn from this that when Jewish people are learning Torah, Hashem is learning the same Torah you're learning as well. So Hashem is like your chavrusa. So that's one thing the Gemara is saying. But obviously, what the real problem is, the Gemara goes on, and Rav Yossi, who understands he's involved in a machlokes with Rabbi Yonasan, and this one says this, one says that. So Amar Lei says, Chas v'sholom, God forbid. Why would God have to quote two opinions? Is there anything like a doubt in Hashem's mind? Hashem should say they're learning the sugya of Pilegesh Begiva, and this is the law. This is what happened. How could you bring both opinions? So Amarlei, Eliyahu said, Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. These and those are the words of the living God. Hein shvuv matzah. Yes, a fly was found, but v'lo hikpid, he wasn't so particular. He didn't get in such a fight with her if he found a fly in the soup. Nima matzah, but when he found the hair, v'hikpid, so he was particular. So therefore, it was both things. I guess one started to irritate him, and then the second one was the straw that broke the camel's back. So let's keep reading, then we'll ask some questions. Amar Rabbi Yehuda adds, Zvuv Bakara, he found a fly in the soup, in the plate of the food. V'nima bosa makom, and the hair was in her private place. So, Zvuv ma'isusa, the fly was not a nice thing, but v'nima sakanta, but finding the hair there is a bit of a physical danger to the husband as well. Okay. So therefore the first one, he wasn't so angry, but the second one he was really upset. Ikad Amri, some say, Idi ve'idi bekara. Some say both items were found in the soup. So therefore Zvuv, so except flies, it was a mistake. But v'nima pshusa, one of her hairs that gets in there, that's already negligence, and that got him upset. So now, be that as it may, what's the most important point? The Gemara now comes to the conclusion. And the truth of the matter is, what's important is, as you'll see, why does the pasuk have to mention that she left the house and then he went after her, he could just say, really, we could skip the first 5 or 6 psukim and just say, you'll see in a minute. I mean, the eventual story revolves around the husband was traveling with the Pilegesh, and a terrible thing occurred to the Pilegesh. You just say there's this guy walking on the road with his Pilegesh and something happened. But no, we have all these introductory verses. You'll see it's about 10 or 12 introductory verses in the beginning of this chapter that seem to be such detail of such non-consequence when we see what the major story is coming up over here. The main story is a disgusting story of what the people of Binyamin did to the Pilegesh. So what do we care, how we got to that? So let's just start in with the story. It's all preliminaries, and it seems so very mundane. So the Gemara deals with this really, and this is what the Gemara concludes. Amar Rav Chisda, Gemara says, I'm reading from the Gemara. La'olam al yatil adam emi yaser v'soch beisa. Person should never bring excessive fear into his home. In other words, the guy was probably, we'll see. Shrei Pilegesh begiva, because the story of Pilegesh begiva, hitil aleha bala emi yasera. The husband brought tremendous fear upon the wife in this house. Obviously, there was, he probably was yelling and screaming and this and that and everything else. And then, so, they got in a fight, so she left. That's what happened. No, it's just fine. The husband, gets up, doesn't get that upset, but it's, you have that, you don't comment on what you should have commented on, and then it builds up, right? And then he finds things that are dissatisfying when it gets to something that's even more important to him. So then he gets upset. He's makpid. He starts screaming and yelling and this and that. And she says, "Okay, I'm going to father. I'm going home." So what happens? So Gemara says, "Look what happened to Pilegesh begiva, and because of that, he pila kama rivavos misro." And from this we'll find tens of thousands of Jewish people died because of this one story. We will see. But it all started with this. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, so Gemara concludes, Rav Yehuda name of Rav says, Kol hamatal ema yaser b'soch beiso. Anybody who causes such a caustic environment in his house, that everyone's so afraid of what's going on, who bali de shalosh averos, he'll come to 3 averos, Gili Arayas, Shvichus Damim, V'chil Shabbos. It'll come to immorality, it'll come to murder, and it'll come to the desecration of the Shabbos. Because, in other words, when you cause such a caustic atmosphere in the home, and people are always afraid of the husband, afraid of the father, he's going to go crazy, he's going to start screaming, he's going to start yelling. And what we're really talking about is abuse of one form or another. It could be verbal abuse, mental abuse, and then there's physical abuse. But you have that kind of home where the husband brings all that kind of tension into the house. Eventually these 3 averos are going to come into being. That's not hard to understand. And it's not necessarily inconsistent with the other commentaries that said that she had an extramarital relationship. Because it's not hard to understand if a husband abuses his wife verbally, then eventually the wife will not feel loved by the husband, and she'll find another guy that will give her love. Remember, she especially was a Pilegesh. Pilegesh isn't, especially if you say she doesn't have the full status of a married wife. But in other words, but even, yes, I mean, it's not unusual nowadays to hear that, even Orthodox women, they have affairs. Why is that? And when they meet with the rabbi, and the rabbi says, how could you bring yourself to such a thing? So then she says, but Rabbi, the other guy, he said I really look pretty. He said I'm really a nice person. And my husband never told me that. So that's a snare of Ema Yasera. It can bring immorality into the house. Right? Shvichas Dam, murder. You'll see the story coming up. It's full of murder. And on every level, Shvichas Dam, Shvichas Dam means when you insult someone, that's like murdering him, etc., etc. And Chilul Shabbos, where do you get Chilul Shabbos from? How do you get desecrating the Shabbos? Very simple. Can you imagine a house where I told you this story once, yeah. I told you the story once with, I don't know if in this class, Rabbi Freifeld of blessed memory tells over the following story. When he was a bacher, so he's learning in yeshiva, and I believe it was Rafut, I may have forgot the names over here. Anyway, so this is going way back. It's going way back, many, many years ago. But still, when you live in a not a town yeshiva, so what do you do for Shabbos? So okay, you eat in the yeshiva for Shabbos, but the food's usually not that great. It's not like mother's cooking in yeshiva. And the guys would like to get invited out to other people's homes. Kol guys who are married guys, staff, whatever. If you can get invited to someone's house, it's a treat. I remember when I was a bacher, you wished that you'd get invited to somebody's house. You really get a square meal. So this particular yeshiva, so guys got invited out to certain places, and there was this one rabbi who it seems that people never went to his house. So Feifel, I think he asked Footner. He says, so we're thinking of going to Rabbi so and so's house. So Footner said, I don't know if that's the best idea. He says, well, okay, anyway. But they went anyway. And so there's about, I don't know, 3 or 4 bacher. They all went Friday night. They went to the rabbi's house. And it was a beautiful Shabbos meal. The food was good. The Zmiros was good. The singing was good. The Dvar Torahs were beautiful. It was an amazing meal. The meal went really good. And Rav Freifeld was wondering why Rav Footner said he didn't think it was a good idea to go. Anyway, towards the end of the meal, and the husband, lays back, and then says, and now it's time for my beer. Well, I guess that's his Shabbos, his Oynik Shabbos, to have one beer after the meal. I guess that's what he liked. Then all of a sudden the wife turns white. And she starts stammering and saying, I was so busy. It was so much to prepare for Shabbos and this and that and all these other things, and I forgot to buy the beer. And then the husband starts pounding on the table. He says, "Where's my beer?" And the wife is like, so, I'm sorry, I forgot this. And he starts yelling and just like Jekyll and Hyde. Where's my beer? Smashing the table, and it's such an uncomfortable scene. The bacher what are they doing at that table? So they're hiding their faces. They just benched quickly and left while they were in the midst of that strife. So that's what you call Ema Yisera in a house. That's called excessive fear in a house. Now let's figure for a minute. Let's say it's Erev Shabbos, and this husband's gone off to Shul, and the wife realized that she forgot to put the stove on. All the food went into the oven, and then after she lit the candles, she looked at the stove and said she forgot to put the food in the oven to warm it up. It's going to be cold. And she knows what kind of husband's coming home. You don't think that there's a big Yetzer Hara for her to just turn the stove on. She's a religious lady. It's Chil Shabbos. But she doesn't. No one wants to be the victim of verbal abuse. You don't think a person will be Machal Shabbos? She'll be Machal Shabbos.
Probably go and buy beer too.
What? Or she go to the store. She go to the store and go to the store and buy a beer. Because people don't. You don't want to be the victim of any kind of abuse. It's so unpleasant. And so then there are certain husbands, and the truth is there's wives also. It's more. Those days it was more the husband. But if you have such a caustic environment, people are afraid of you. Now there is an aspect. There should be a certain aspect of respect and a certain light level of fear where they don't want to have the chutzpah to do things that are inappropriate. You want to have that. We're talking. It says ema yisera, excessive fear. A certain amount of fear is good. Torah says you have to fear your parents. You have to revere your parents, right? But excessive fear is terrible because it causes a lot of terrible things. So that's what we're saying. Excessive fear is a terrible thing. So you have to be careful, because look, had they not had this fact, she would not have left home, and the whole subsequent story would not have happened. So that's an important thing to remember. So this is why the Torah, the Navi, is going to such detail. Because you think it's not such a big deal, it's a very big deal. Now, Rav Tzadok mentions another thing about, now, Vusep is the fly. I mean, what's the idea of a fly? I mean, why does the Gemara need such detail? So Rav Tzadok says something very interesting. And really, there's also another issue. Rav Yossi, he meets Eliyahu Navi, and he says, how could it be that there's two opinions? He says, these and these are the words of Hashem. These and these are the words of Hashem. But the truth is, and he says, because the first time he found the fly, he wasn't so particular. The second time he found the hair, he was particular. But the truth of the matter is, wait a minute. But really, what was the problem? What caused her to leave was the second thing, not the first thing. So Gemara is not correct in saying these and those are the words of the living God. Even though both things happened, but really what was the one that really made the story happen was the hair, not the fly. So I can say these and those are the words of the living God. So Reb Tzadok says that the idea of a fly, interesting, represents a lack of holiness. Why? There's a story later on in Sefer Malachim. There's a famous story with Eliyahu Hanavi. When Eliyahu Hanavi was traveling around, he stopped in a place in Shunem, and he was and the wife, this woman who notices that Eliyahu Hanavi was hanging around the neighborhood, the wife says to the husband, "This is a very holy man. We should really give him a place in our house to stay. It would be a big merit if a holy man stays in our house." So Gemara says, how did she know Eliyahu was a holy man? He went like undercover. He wasn't like with the signs, "Hi, I'm Eliyahu Navi." It's like, how did she know he was a holy man? Gemara says, because flies were not attracted to him. Interesting concept. You know, bugs attack. Usually flies fly around. You go to a cow. You ever go around a cow? Go to a farm, cows, pigs, place. Flies all over the place, right? So bugs are attracted to animals or to people who act like animals. Okay, that's a sobering thought when you when you have mosquitoes that are bothering you. But anyway, so the idea of a fly, so you saw there were no flies around this guy. You know, you can imagine Eretz Yisrael's got a hot climate. There could be a lot of gnats or things like that, and there's no flies around this guy. Must be a holy man. So the bug represents. There are bugs that represents there was no kedusha with both of them. Okay, there was a problem. There was a lack of kedusha, a lack of holiness. Then the hair represents the actual problems of the morality issues that were involved in their intimacy. Whatever was going on over there were actions that the morality was not the best. So, and it's also interesting that we know there's a chazal that say when the Yetzer Hara first comes to a person, he's like a little thread. And then it gets stronger and stronger until it becomes almost like ropes that are so thick you can't get yourself away from them. So the hair represents what the Yetzer Hara is at the beginning. It's like a thin thread. And the fact that she didn't groom herself properly, is where there were matters of immorality. So that's what the Gemara means when it says, Elu ve'elu, these and those are the words of the living God, meaning to say that when there was flies around already, and that means there was a lack of holiness in the family, so that was the time when the husband should have been particular before it reached the stages of problems with morality. And he shouldn't have waited until there were morality problems. In other words, very interesting, subtle insight over here. You have to know what to be particular, when to be particular, and when not to be overly particular. So it seems that that fly that represents areas of kedusha, areas of holiness. So let's try to make a contemporary example. Wait a minute, what areas of holiness were lacking in that house? So let's take a contemporary house. How would we say a Jewish house would be lacking holiness?
Kitchen's not kosher.
What?
Kitchen's not kosher.
Kitchen's not kosher. You don't have to be that extreme.
TV.
Having a TV in the house.
Yeah.
Having a home where the internet is surfed regularly as a pastime. You want to say that house has holiness in it? It doesn't have holiness in it. And everyone says, well, something in my eye. It's not a fly, but so you're going to say, this, they've been talking a lot in the schools lately, having all these meetings. They're saying you have to really either get rid of it, or you have to have such extreme filters, very, very excessive filters, if you have to have it. But the reason you shouldn't have it, people say, what's the big deal? People don't understand what Kiddush is all about. They don't understand what holiness is all about. Having certain magazines in a house. That's the aspect of Kedusha. You speak to most people, they say, well, it's not a big deal. I'm not so makpid. I'm not so particular. And the truth is, that's exactly where you're supposed to be particular. And then you don't. And then you wonder, what happens that, you find that your kids are doing all kinds of nefarious activities that are really not proper. And you find out what kind of friends they picked up on the internet and on Facebook and all these other crazy places. And you have all these things. You have stories. I know what happened. My daughter, nice girl, goes to a nice Jewish school. What was she doing, fooling around with this non-Jewish guy? How did that ever come into being? Because when the parents are asleep, the daughter has all kinds of another life in front of the computer, which unfortunately is happening more frequently. So then you come to the issue of morality, and you have with husbands and wives. You have husbands and wives. It's unfortunate. People go to certain sites and are attracted to certain not proper sites, and are involved. What's the term called? Virtual immorality. Right? Virtual morality. So but I didn't do anything. Yeah, okay, fine. But so that's the slippery slope. You take Kedusha out of the house. That's when it says she wasn't. There's an issue of a fly. That means it's a code word for there's no Kedusha in the house. Husband didn't care. But then when there's issues of immorality, even within the house, whatever the intimacy between a husband and wife, there's morality issues even within the intimacy of a husband and wife that we don't have to get into details with. So there are issues, there are problems, and you can certainly understand how that you can combine the two interpretations. That they've gotten into a fight, and maybe she also was immoral too. She had a husband who was like that, so of course then she did what she had to do to get the relief from him. So the truth of the matter is, Rabbi Yossi was also correct. So when we asked, how could these and those are the words of the living God, right? But no, we said the answer was the second opinion. He found the hair and he got really upset about it. So how could the first opinion be correct? The answer is Rabbi Yossi is also correct, because these were both problems. In other words, what was the problem that all the troubles came? Number one, that when the fly was in the soup, that's when he should have been particular. When there was a lack of Kedusha, there was a lack of holiness, that's when he should have been particular. That was the time to be particular. Dear, we're throwing out the TV. We're throwing this out. It doesn't belong in the house. We have to have more holiness in the house. And guess what? Then there wouldn't have been other problems. Where all the problems come from? Where all the problems come from? You watch what's out there, right? You see what's out there. And then you think that that's the way it's supposed to be. Right? You have to be fit and healthy and this and that. Mamish, if you have any excess fat, you're a disgusting, gross individual. Whoever said that that's true, just have a few extra pounds you're carrying. I'm not talking about someone who's obese and has physical issues. A person can get sick, chas v'shom. I'm saying regular flab. Most people carry a little bit of flab on them. You're not going to get a heart attack from a little bit of extra weight. And that my physique isn't so 100% to fit into a glamour magazine or a man's muscular fitness magazine. This is not the end of the world. So you're not a pin-up boy or girl. But you go to places that sell you what's out there in the world. They're going to say you have to be that way. And that's a whole world of tumah. That's a whole world of unholiness. That's what that whole world's all about. And you bring it right into your house, and this is an accepted thing. So then, and then of course that whole world, everything of that world, the outside world, it all revolves around immorality. That, because, they just found this week, right? There's a website, that has the three famous words, the SEX, .com. It's like the classic first one, whatever. I think is, I just look at the head, I see a headline, I don't even want to know more. It says it's going up for auction, like for $1 million. If you have that web, because when these web things expire or whatever, so it's like up for sale. You want to know, you want to click in one word, what has the most sites on Google? You just type in SEX. That's more than anything else in the whole thing. And so the whole world is driven to that. It's all driving to that point, right? They couch it in different ways. You got to be healthy. You think all the people in the health clubs, they're just there to make their body look good, and that's where it ends? What do you want to have such a good body for? Is your spouse complaining? No, because really, what do you want to do? You want to be someone that a lot of people want to be with you, right? So that's what it's all about. That's what all these things are all about. Making money. It's all revolves around that. Multi-billion-dollar deals are sealed of these things. That's the way the world is. You want to sell cottage cheese. What does that have to do with somebody that's half unclothed? But that's how you're going to sell it. Right. So that's what it's all about. So where are you supposed to be particular? When you're up to the point of immorality? No, 2 steps before. There should be holiness in the house. There's holiness in the house. You're not thinking about these things. It's not on the agenda. So Elu ve'elu, these and those are both the words of the living God. What was the problem over here? What caused her to stray from him? What caused her to run away from the house? Number one, where he should have been particular in holiness, he wasn't particular. So then when a guy isn't particular about holiness, so what is he particular about? At least, our marital stuff should be just like they say in the newspapers it should be. Because, what I watched on television, why can't you be like this actress? Or why can't you be like that actor? He just won an Academy Award. Why can't you be in bed like he is? What are you talking about? What is it? You think that's real? So then you get all these kind of problems. Otherwise, you get all these fights. Right? So how did that? So that go hand in hand. So he ignored the problem at stage 1, and by stage 2 he gets overly angry, and as they say, too little, too late, and the wrong things to get involved with. And this will be, and you'll see now, such a marriage, you'll see how low it can go. And this is just setting up the scene, because what we're going to read in the next verses, you're going to say, this is unbelievable. This is shocking, what you're going to see. So you're going to see it. It starts with the day-to-day negligence that happens. Yes, sir.
I just have a question.
This is Rav Tzadok's interpretation.
I'm just surprised the example the couple that's used to be the example here is a concubine as opposed to a husband and wife. Wouldn't you want to use a husband and wife example to make it hit home more than a concubine? Or is it supposed to be at the same level of Kedusha?
Listen, it would depend on which interpretations you're using, right? You have to look at what interpretation you're using. Obviously, it could be, with a wife, maybe he would have treated a little bit better. I don't know. The Pilegesh doesn't come with all the stringencies of a regular wife. But first of all, the simple answer is that was the story. It's not like, Hashem made up a story. Why didn't he make it? This was the story. Yeah. So we can't, that's what happened, obviously, if a fellow has a concubine, as we explained yesterday, it's not such a simple thing having, obviously, having such a woman, if you're choosing not to have a woman that is your mamish, your ezer kenegdo, not your basher, but it's like it's a spare. What do you want to say? Like a spare tire place. You know what I mean? Like to have more of his needs taken care of. I mean, we explained. You could have a Pilegesh in a correct and proper way. I guess he didn't have it in such a correct and proper way, and didn't feel that her feelings were that important.
Or maybe you could say if you have to do it have that much kedusha with Pelegesh, then more so.
The more so with a wife, could be like that, could be like that. Again, it's not 100% clear. But let's keep going. So let's see what happens. Plus a gimel. Anyway, she's away for 4 months. Plus a gimel. Vayakam Isha, so her husband got up. And Vayelach Acharev, he goes after her. L'daber al liba, to speak to her heart. Lahashiva, to bring her back. In other words, he decides to go back to his father-in-law's house and to speak to the wife and woo her back to him. So the Malbim says the fact that he wants her back suggests that she wasn't actually immoral, if you say she was an actual status of a wife. That's what Malbim says. Or you could say maybe she didn't have the actual status of a wife, and even if she was, she can want her back. But anyway, and so what happens? Vinar imo, and he has a lad with him, I guess accompanying him. V'semet chamorim, and a pair of oxen he brings with him. I think it must be a fairly wealthy guy, going around with a pair of oxen. He wants to woo her back. Vativi'ehu beisavia, she brings him back to her father's house. I have to explain what that means. Vayir'ehu avianara, and the father of the young woman, she's called a nara. Now, the Peleg is called a nara, meaning she was a young girl. So again, it could be, like I said, it could be, you never know, the father could have been very poor, and it's a young girl, and who's going to take care of her? And this guy says, listen, I'll take her for a Pelegish. I mean, that could explain the scenarios, why these things are going on. But the father of the young girl, Vayismach likroso, and he's very happy to see that he's coming. So the Malbim adds over here a couple points. He says that it seems that the fact that it says she brought him into the house may suggest that she was really going to go home to him and kind of met him on the way. In other words, she herself maybe thought that she wanted to go, and he met her on the way, and she brought him into the father's house. And the father-in-law was happy to see him. Why was he happy to see him? Number one, he's happy maybe the marriage is being restored. He's happy, it looks like they're getting back together. Number two, the fact that he carried the donkey and all this, the oxen, shows he was a wealthy man. So he's happy to know that his son-in-law was doing well. He was a wealthy man, was happy. Be that as it may, okay. A second. It's over here. Yeah. Okay, next, Pasuk Dalet. So now he's there. So Pharaoh says, why don't you hang around a while? Pasuk Dalet. Vayichazek b'chosno avian hara. So the father-in-law, who is the father of the young woman, vayichazek, he takes hold of him. He convinces him to hang around. Right? In other words, he doesn't let go of him to just. You figure normally he says, give me my wife when I'm going. He says, why don't you stay? And he stays 3 days. So you're ready. It's a far trip. Just hang around here for a few days. They ate, they drank. They stayed overnight there. Fine. Pasuk K. Was on the 4th day. They got up in the morning. He got up to go. So the father-in-law said to his son-in-law, why don't you satiate yourself, have a little bit of bread, and then go. Have something to eat before you leave. It's unbelievable, the detail over here. This is like unbelievable. Pasuk Vav. Vayeshu, they sat down. Vayochlu shneim yachtov, they both sat down to eat. Vayishtu, they drank. Vayomer avianar ali, so then the father. Look, also, there's so many changes of descriptions over here. He's all called the Avianara. Instead of referring to his son-in-law as the Chasano, it says El Ha'ish, to the man. He says to the man, Holna, please agree with me, Valim, and stay overnight already. V'yitav libecha, and your heart will be happy, will be good. And, stay already. In other words, and eat a little more. Let's party a little bit more. So fine. So he parties a little bit more. So he stays for day number 4. Pasuk Zayin, Vayokom Yishalech. So the next day, day number 5, the guy's getting up to go. Vayivtzer Barchosno, so his father-in-law urges him again. Vayoshev Vayelen Sham. I'm sorry, this was day 4. I'm sorry, that was day 4. That they went up to leave, but he urged him and he eventually stayed overnight. So then, Pasuk Ches, Vayashke Babok, Bayom HaChamisha, and the 5th day Lelech is to go. That must go already. Vayom Ravi Anara, so the father says, Shadna Levavcha, satiate your heart, Vismamu, Adnatoch Hayom. So stay a little bit till the day, prolongs a little bit, until the sun is more up, and it's a little bit warmer. Vayok L'Shem, so they're eating again. Pasuk Tes. Vayokom Yishalech Asu Pilakshu V'Naro. So now the guy is getting up to go, him and his Pilegesh and his Nar. Vayomer L'Chos Navi Anara. And now the father-in-law, who's the father of the young woman. 3 different expressions are always used for this father-in-law now. He says, Hinei no rofa hayom la rov. That the day already is getting weak and it's beginning to be evening time. And the sun is already in the setting position. You don't have a full day of traveling. Linu no. Sleep overnight. Hinei chanos hayom. The day is parking itself, as it were. Lean po, sleep overnight. V'yitav levavcha, make your heart happy. V'ishkamta mochar. Tomorrow you get up very early to go on your way. And leave it for tomorrow. And you will go back to your tent. You will go back to your home. So he's really trying to keep him there a long time, right? And he says, especially now, it's late in the afternoon. It's really a time to go to sleep. And you're not. In other words, you're not going to get home if you leave at this time. So make your place to sleep tonight, and tomorrow early in the morning you'll go, and you won't have to stay up. So if you're going to leave now, you're going to have to stay somewhere on the road to go from Beis Lechem Yehuda and to get back up to Ephraim, to the edges of Ephraim. If at this time of day, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, whatever, it's too long of a trip. You don't have to stay overnight. Why do you want to bother to stay overnight? Okay. Pasuk Yud. The man did not agree to stay overnight. Vayokom, he got up. Vayelech, he went. Vayavad nochach Yevus Yerushalayim. He went to the was opposite an area called Yevus, which is Yerushalayim, was at that point a non-Jewish inhabited city. V'imot tzemet chamorim chavushim u'pilak shimo. And with him were the 2 donkeys that were tied up together, and his Pilegesh was with him, and he finds himself in an area, a non-Jewish area. And this explains, why he wasn't why he wasn't sleeping yet. Why did he not go to sleep? Because he had with him the donkeys over there. He's afraid of robbers. He also had his wife over there, and the guy just wasn't comfortable sleeping, and he's trying to figure out what to do. They could have just slept on the road, but it was not such a safe area. So this is the beginning of where the trouble is going to happen. So we're going to have to let you cliffhang on this.